Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The sun was setting behind the golden dunes, enveloping Khalid Al Farouk's palace in an almost surreal orange glow. At first glance, everything about it exuded wealth and power: carved marble columns, sparkling crystal chandeliers, and lush gardens where fountains whispered forgotten secrets. But behind this sumptuous setting lurked a chilling atmosphere, where fear and submission reigned supreme. Khalid, dressed in his immaculate white robe and gold-embroidered turban, stood tall, his gaze proud and distant. His wives, each chosen for their beauty and rank, were lined up in the great hall, like precious but silent trophies. Their daily lives were one of obedience and caution, every gesture scrutinized, every word weighed. None could express disagreement without risking humiliation or worse. Among them, Layla, young and determined, felt her heart beat in time with her silent anger. Every humiliation suffered by her sisters resonated within her like a cry for justice. She had learned to observe, to listen, to wait for the right moment for the truth to emerge. And that moment, she knew, was approaching. For behind the Sheikh's arrogance lurked a weakness he had never suspected, the quiet strength of those he believed he dominated. Fate was about to turn brutally against him, and the Golden Palace was about to become the scene of an unexpected revenge, guided by intelligence, courage, and solidarity. Morning broke over Khalid Al Farouk's palace, flooding the halls with golden light. The marble columns reflected the sun like glittering mirrors, and the Persian carpets spread their rich and intricate patterns across the immaculate floor. But behind this facade of luxury and magnificence, the lives of the Sheikh's wives were a silent prison. Layla stood by her bedroom window, gazing out over the manicured gardens where the fountains gently swayed. She was 19 years old, with a delicate but determined face, and dark eyes that burned with a flicker of rebellion. Despite the material comforts and sumptuous jewelry she wore, she felt the heavy chain of the Sheikh's domination every day. Layla. Khalid's voice echoed through the hallway. She sat up instantly, controlling her emotions. "Come to the lobby immediately," he ordered, each word laden with command. In the hall, the other wives were already lined up, their faces fixed in silent obedience. Sheikh Khalid walked with measured steps, his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze stern. "Today, I want you to understand once and for all your place in this palace," he declared, his voice sharp. "Each of you must obey me without question, without murmur, without hesitation. You are my possessions." Layla felt a chill run down her spine, but her eyes didn't drop. She noticed the shifty glances of the others, some tinged with fear, others with bitterness. She knew that many dreamed of resisting, but few had the courage to do so. "Did you hear me, Layla?" The Sheikh's voice made her jump. "Yes, my lord," she replied calmly, masking the anger boiling inside her. Khalid frowned, puzzled by this lack of complete submission. He didn't like to be challenged, even subtly, but something about Layla's attitude piqued his curiosity and, at the same time, his irritation. After spending the day overseeing his wives' every move, the Sheikh finally left, leaving behind a heavy, oppressive silence. In the privacy of her room, Layla took a deep breath and whispered, "We can't stay on our knees any longer. One day he will pay for everything, and that day will come very soon." The other wives listened in silence, a glimmer of hope and courage dawning in their eyes. Layla knew this was only the beginning. The palace, despite its splendor, would soon become the scene of a brutal reversal the Sheikh had never imagined. Night was falling gently over the palace, and the golden corridors were transformed into shifting shadows. Oil lamps cast dancing reflections on the carved walls, and the silence was broken only by the rustling of silks and the whispering of fountains. In this magical but oppressive setting, Layla walked cautiously, her heart pounding. She had learned to listen to the slightest whisper, to observe the guards and servants, to sense the invisible tensions that coursed through the palace. But tonight, she was not alone. Wives, discreetly gathered in a remote wing, were waiting for her. Among them was Amira, the oldest and wisest, and Sarah, impulsive but loyally devoted. "Layla, do you really think we can do something?" Amira asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. Yes, Layla replied with conviction. We cannot continue to live like cattle. He believes himself to be all-powerful, but he is blind to what is happening around him. He believes that fear controls us, but we have something other than fear, courage and unity. Sarah nodded, her eyes shining. I've had enough of his humiliations. Every day, he belittles us, treats us like objects. We have to do something, Layla. Layla smiled weakly, aware of the danger. We have to be smart. No rash moves. We have to observe, learn, find her weaknesses. And above all, stay united. The plan was beginning to take shape. They had been observing the Sheikh for weeks, noting his habits, his distractions, his moments of vulnerability. Layla had even spotted documents hidden in the Sheikh's office, revealing questionable dealings and secret alliances. This information could become their most valuable asset. That night, they parted silently, their hearts heavy but filled with hope. Layla stood by her window for a few moments, watching the stars twinkle over the desert. A shiver of determination ran through her. He doesn't know what awaits him, she whispered. He thinks he owns us, but soon he'll understand that his tyranny comes at a price. In the shadows of the palace, the women's whispers grew louder, like the breath of a storm about to break. And this breath, once released, would upset the balance of the palace and the life of Khalid al-Farouk forever. The sun was at its zenith when Sheikh Khalid decided to gather his wives in the great hall for an inspection. His footsteps echoed on the polished marble, creating an atmosphere of tension and fear. Each wife knew that the slightest misstep could trigger public humiliation. Today I want to see if you are worthy of living in this palace, Khalid declared in an icy voice. Any disobedience will be severely punished. Layla felt her heart race, but she remained motionless, her eyes fixed on the Sheikh calmly. She knew this moment was crucial. One of the wives, nervous, inadvertently knocked over a gold tray containing jewels. Khalid turned to her, furious. How dare you be so clumsy? His voice echoed like a whip through the hall. Layla, witnessing the scene, felt her anger rising. She advanced slowly but decisively. My lord, she said in a clear voice, fear and threats do not create loyalty. Humiliation does not strengthen respect, it destroys it. An icy silence fell. Khalid blinked, surprised by Layla's courage. He wasn't used to his wives daring to contradict him, especially not in public. Do you dare speak to me like that? He growled, his face red with anger. Do you realize how bold you are? Yes, I realize that, Layla replied, unwaveringly. But I can no longer remain silent as I see the injustice and humiliation you inflict on others and myself. We are not possessions, we are human beings. Khalid stepped back slightly, unsettled by the young wife's firmness and lucidity. The other women watched, some frightened, others astonished and inspired. For the first time, they saw that rebellion was possible. After a tense moment, Khalid turned away, furious but intrigued. I'll be watching you, Layla. One mistake and, you'll regret it. Layla bowed her head slightly. I am not afraid of you, my lord. And the day will come when fear will change sides. As the Sheikh left the hall, a murmur ran through the ranks of the wives. A glimmer of hope had been born. Layla, aware of the risk she had just taken, smiled slightly. The confrontation had been a test, but she now knew that the first crack in the Sheikh's absolute power had just appeared. This confrontation was only the beginning. The palace, with all its grandeur, would soon become the scene of a reversal Khalid had never imagined. And Layla, more than ever, prepared to lead her sisters to freedom. The palace halls were silent, but for Layla, every step echoed like the beating of a drum heralding change. She knew the courage shown in the hall was only the first step, now it was time to act. The wives' fear was real, but their anger and desire for dignity could become a formidable force. That evening, Layla invited Amira, Sarah, and 2 other wives to a small, forgotten room in the palace, behind the gardens. The room, dark but secure, offered the privacy needed to speak freely. We can't wait any longer, Layla said, placing the documents she had stolen from the Sheikh's office on the table. Every humiliation, every insult, every absurd order we endure is an act against our dignity. But we have one trump card, we know what he's hiding. Amira shuddered at the sight of the documents. This evidence, if it falls into the wrong hands, Khalid could kill us, or worse. That's why we must be careful, Layla replied. We won't act on impulse. We must observe, understand her routines, and find the moment when we can strike safely. But above all, we must remain united. Sarah, the more impulsive one, clenched her fists. I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want him to feel what we feel. For him to finally understand that he's not all-powerful. Layla nodded. Strength alone isn't enough. We must use his arrogance against him. He believes we are weak and docile. He has no idea that every forced smile, every silent step, every glance exchanged in the shadows is preparing his downfall. They spent the evening developing a discreet plan. They identified allies among loyal servants, noted when the Sheikh left the palace for business or meetings, and planned signals to communicate without arousing suspicion. Layla stood by the window as the meeting ended, watching the stars shine above the desert. She felt excitement and fear mingling in her heart. It won't be easy, she whispered to herself. But if we stay smart and united, we can change the course of this palace, and our lives. In the shadows of the gilded walls, the secret alliance was taking shape. Each woman knew their freedom would not be given, it would be won. And when the moment came, the entire palace would tremble under the weight of their courage and determination. Day was breaking over the palace, and the desert heat could already be felt through the large open windows. The main hall, usually a place of quiet splendor, was filled this morning with nervous murmurs. Sheikh Khalid's wives, though still outwardly submissive, carried in their eyes a mixture of apprehension and determination. Khalid entered the hall, as he did every morning, his immaculate white robe sliding behind him. His eyes, piercing and commanding, swept the room. But this morning, something had changed. He felt a shiver of unease, without understanding why. Today, Layla, he began in a commanding voice, I want to see your perfect obedience. Show me that you deserve your place here. Layla stepped forward slowly, her gaze fixed on the Sheikh. She had known about this moment for weeks, had planned it down to the smallest detail. Every gesture, every word, had been carefully considered. My lord, she said calmly, I refuse to carry out this order. I can no longer participate in humiliations that hurt others. Fear and intimidation are not means of respect, only chains. The hall froze. Khalid, red with anger, took a step forward. How dare you challenge me like this, in front of everyone? Layla held his gaze without trembling. Because I know I'm not alone. Your wives deserve respect, and your threats won't make us bend. A murmur ran through the ranks of the other wives. Some stood rigid, frightened by Khalid's obvious anger, while others smiled quietly, acknowledging Layla's courage. For the first time, they saw that resistance was possible. Khalid stepped forward again, raising his hand as if to punish Layla, but something about her unsettled him. Her calm and determination were unexpected. Every word she spoke shook his control, and for the first time, he felt that his dominance was not absolute. You don't know who you're dealing with, he growled. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Layla replied firmly. A man who believes he has it all, but ignores the strength of those he underestimates. Khalid, furious but intrigued, turned away, leaving a heavy silence in the hall. The wives held their breath, aware that they had just witnessed a historic turning point. Layla smiled slightly at the looks on the other women's faces. They now understood that change was possible. The first crack in the Sheikh's absolute power had just appeared, and the palace, despite its grandeur, would soon become the scene of a reversal he had never imagined. A few days after the first confrontation, Layla knew that caution was essential. Sheikh Khalid, still irritated by her audacity, was keeping a close eye on her. But she now had an advantage, information. Taking advantage of the Sheikh's absence during a meeting with his advisors, Layla slipped into his office, a room forbidden to wives. Her heart pounding, she discreetly searched the drawers and chests adorned with gilt, until she discovered a filing cabinet hidden behind a precious rug. Inside were documents revealing shady financial dealings, secret alliances with corrupt politicians, and evidence of abuse of employees and business partners. Every page confirmed what Layla suspected: the Sheikh was not only cruel in his private life, he was also cruel in his business. She returned to her room, her hands shaking but her mind clear. This information could change everything. It gave her the leverage she needed to overthrow the Sheikh, but she had to act with finesse. Layla gathered her companions in the secret room. "I've discovered something important," she said, placing the documents before them. "This evidence exposes his abuses and corrupt alliances. If we play our cards right, we can not only defend our dignity, but also expose his crimes." Amira frowned cautiously. "It's dangerous. If Khalid finds out we have these documents, he could hurt us, or worse." "I know," Layla replied. "But staying silent is worse. We must use this information wisely. We will wait for the right moment, and we will strike when he is most vulnerable." Sarah, always impulsive, clenched her fists excitedly. "Then let's do it. Let him finally feel what we've been through. Let him understand that he's not invincible." The plan was taking shape. The wives began identifying allies among the servants and preparing signals to communicate secretly. Every detail counted, the slightest misstep could compromise their entire strategy. As evening fell, Layla sat by the window, looking out at the palace bathed in lamplight. She knew the decisive moment was approaching. Khalid, in his arrogance, had no idea that his own empire was beginning to crumble under the weight of the truth. In the shadows, whispers of rebellion grew. And when the plan was finally revealed, the entire palace would witness an unexpected, brutal, and irreversible turn of events. The atmosphere in the palace was electric. Rumors circulated silently among the servants, and even some of the guards were beginning to become inattentive, intrigued by the wives' behavior. Sheikh Khalid, ever self-assured, remained convinced that his dominance was absolute. But for the first time, cracks were appearing in his gilded empire. That morning, a young servant of Layla's, Amir, approached the Sheikh with mock caution. "My lord," he began, his face marked by calculated hesitation. "What is it?" Khalid asked, frowning. "It seems," Amir said, playing scared, "that some of your wives are planning something against you." Khalid felt his blood run cold. He had never considered that his own home could harbor betrayal. His gaze swept the neighboring rooms, scrutinizing every face, every gesture. But no wife betrayed their nervousness. Layla, true to her strategy, maintained a calm, almost innocent expression. "Impossible," Khalid murmured, his voice low, almost incredulous. "They owe me everything." But Amir had sown doubt. Khalid began to tighten his surveillance, increasing inspections and checks. Every step he took in the palace was accompanied by growing suspicion. He was unaware that these measures only confirmed the precision of Layla's plan. Her arrogance and paranoia were isolating her even further. In the secret room, Layla and the other wives gathered. "He's on his guard," Amira said worriedly. "He's watching us more than ever." "That's exactly what we wanted," Layla replied with a smile. "His obsession with control is his weakness. The more he tries to stifle us, the more he'll show the world his true colors. We just have to wait for the right moment. Patience and strategy, that's all we need." Sarah clenched her fists. "I can't wait for that day to come. For him to finally feel what we've felt all these years." Layla placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Remember, we don't just seek revenge. We want justice, and for that, every move must be calculated." Tensions in the palace were reaching a peak. Khalid, consumed by fear of a betrayal he could not identify, failed to see that the trap was slowly closing around him. Every excessive surveillance, every suspicion, reinforced the strength of the wives' secret alliance. The decisive moment was approaching, and the palace, the symbol of his power, would soon witness a humiliation and a reversal Khalid could never have imagined. The day of the grand ceremony arrived. The palace shone like never before, adorned with sumptuous carpets, sparkling chandeliers, and rare flowers from around the world. Prestigious guests were expected, dignitaries, businessmen, and influential members of high society. Khalid al-Farouk, confident in his grandeur and control, imagined that everything would go according to plan, as usual. Layla and the other wives stood in the shadows, ready to act. The crucial documents had been carefully hidden, and the allied servants had prepared every detail so that nothing would compromise their operation. The moment of truth was approaching. As Khalid took the stage to deliver a speech of power and authority, Layla stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her clear, assured voice echoing through the hall, "I must interrupt what you are about to hear. What you see here, this palace, these trappings of grandeur, hide a much darker truth." Khalid blinked, stunned. "What do you dare say, Layla?" "I'm talking about the humiliations, abuses, and crimes this sheikh committed," she continued. "I have here written evidence of corrupt dealings, secret alliances, and injustices he inflicted, not only on his wives, but also on his partners and employees." The documents were revealed by the allied servants and distributed to the guests. The murmur in the hall quickly turned to shocked exclamations. Influential men were realizing the truth. Khalid was not the respected ruler he claimed to be, but an arrogant and corrupt tyrant. "It's impossible," Khalid stammered, his face red with anger and shame. How did you?" Layla, proud and calm, looked him straight in the eye. "You treated us like objects, disregarded our dignity, and believed we had no voice. But today, your power can no longer mask your actions. The truth is there for all to see." The guests whispered among themselves, some scandalized, others quietly applauding Layla's courage. Khalid, unable to respond or defend his position, felt his empire crumbling around him. The wives, united and strong, had managed to turn the tables on him, and the public shame was complete. For the first time, Khalid al-Farouk understood that his arrogance and contempt had led to his downfall. The palace, the symbol of his power, was now nothing more than a silent witness to his defeat. Layla stood tall, her heart filled with satisfaction and pride. Justice, true justice, had been served. And the sheikh, humiliated before everyone, would finally know the consequences of his years of tyranny. After the grand revelation, the palace was plunged into a heavy silence. The guests, shocked by Sheikh Khalid's crimes and abuses, slowly left the hall, some whispering to each other, others taking notes or exchanging incredulous glances. The power Khalid believed to be unassailable had collapsed in an instant. Khalid, standing in the center of the hall, felt helpless. Every word he spoke in an attempt to defend his honor sounded ridiculous. The documents, Layla's firm voice, and the unity of the wives had shattered his dominance. He was, for the first time, powerless and exposed to the world's gaze. Layla walked towards him, calm and regal. "Your reign of fear is over, Khalid. This palace is no longer your prison, but our place of freedom." The other wives joined her, their faces beaming with courage and pride. Some had tears in their eyes, others smiled for the first time in years. They were finally free. The sheikh tried to react, but no words could restore his authority. His once terrifying threats no longer carried any weight. The fall was complete. The allied servants, hitherto discreet, took up positions to support the wives and ensure the security of the transition ceremony. Layla, aware that this was not just a personal victory, spoke a few words in front of all the women in the palace. "We have taken back what belonged to us, our dignity, our voice, and our freedom. We have learned that a man, no matter how powerful he believes himself to be, can be confronted with truth and justice." Some wives decided to leave the palace to build their independence elsewhere, while others chose to stay, transforming the palace into a place of solidarity and education, where fear and humiliation would never again reign. Khalid, meanwhile, was forced to leave, stripped of his power and reputation. The name al-Farouk, once a symbol of grandeur and dominance, was now associated with arrogance and downfall. For Layla and the others, life took on a new meaning. They had overcome oppression and humiliation to achieve justice and freedom. And as they walked through the golden halls of the palace, each step echoed their victory, reminding everyone that courage and solidarity can triumph over tyranny. The palace, once a symbol of fear and tyranny, now shone with a new light. The gilded walls and majestic columns, witnesses to years of humiliation, were now filled with laughter, discussion, and plans for the future. Layla, at the center of this transformation, contemplated the accomplished work with a sense of pride and serenity. The wives, united and free, had taken their destiny into their own hands. Some ran schools for girls in the palace, passing on knowledge and strength to future generations. Others had opened art and music workshops, transforming the dark spaces into places of creation and beauty. The palace, once a gilded prison, had become a sanctuary of freedom and solidarity. Layla, surrounded by her allies, reflected on how far they had come. Every obstacle, every humiliation, every threat had forged their courage and determination. "We have proven that dignity cannot be begged for," she told her companions one morning, "it must be earned. And together, we are invincible." Even the former palace servants, once subject to fear, were now involved in rebuilding and managing this new era. Authority was no longer imposed through violence or intimidation, but through respect, justice, and solidarity. As for Khalid, he had disappeared from the social and political landscape, his name conjuring up nothing but shame and arrogance. The influential men and women who had witnessed the tyrant's fall had learned a valuable lesson: power is worthless if it is based on fear and oppression. Layla stood on the palace balcony and gazed out over the desert. The warm wind caressed her face, and for the first time, she felt a breath of true freedom. The stars shone above the dunes, a reminder that even in the darkest places, light can be reborn. "We survived," she whispered, "and we transformed pain into strength. Let this lesson be forever engraved: no tyrant can dominate those who refuse to be subjugated." The palace, once a symbol of a fallen tyranny, was now the cradle of a bright future. The women, led by Layla, had not only reclaimed their freedom, but had also created a legacy of courage, justice, and dignity that would endure far beyond the gilded walls. Thus ended the reign of Khalid al-Farouk, and began that of free women. The desert wind, silent accomplice of their victory, now blew over a transformed palace, carrying with it the echo of indomitable courage and eternal rebirth.